So Frank says he recently purchased our native Midwest wildflower seed mix and was wondering if it would be a good idea to start the seed in trays to create plugs as opposed to directly seeding into the ground. He says the idea is to get the most germination as well as make it easier to transplant.
That's a great question, Frank. You want to start with that, Tabar?
I mean, you can, but it's really not necessary. You're going to be doing a lot more work than you need to. And transplanting them can actually be a little tricky and cause them to go through shock. Really, the best thing you can do is prepare the soil correctly, get a nice, clear, bare soil patch, put the seeds down. Make sure you use the right amount of seed for your area. That's going to be one of the biggest factors as well. You don't want to put too much seed down or they're going to be overcrowded, and that's going to cause problems too. So I would say definitely don't do that.
Yeah, that's well said, Tabar. And I would agree. Most people, when they're purchasing one of our mixtures, and Frank, thanks for your purchase, they're going to direct sow, broadcast, or hydroseed, or some type of method of sowing the seed versus taking each individual seed, putting it in a flat, and starting it that way. Not really meant, certainly could you do it? Yes, you could. It's going to take a lot of time and effort on your part. And it really isn't necessary. As I mentioned in a previous question, you still have time to put the seed out. And with the warmer weather this time of year, the warm ground temperatures and a little moisture, I think you would be surprised at how quickly that seed is going to germinate. Remember, all the seed that we sell at American Meadows is lab tested to ensure the highest quality germination rate and purity. So ideally, putting that mixture out now, as I mentioned earlier, you should see germination occur 5 to 7 days, which is pretty quick. So I don't really think, Frank, in this case you would want to go through the trouble of starting them in flats. If you can get moisture to it, I'd say go ahead and direct sow, and you should be all set. That seed should germinate quickly, and you should be on your way. Anything to add, Erin?
No, I think you got it.
Yeah. Great question, Frank. Thanks again.
All right. Michael says, I have a garden that I cannot plant this year. I am also a beekeeper. I have about 100 by 100 square foot of bed. What annual flowers can you suggest that will attract honeybees?
Sure. Erin, you want to start with that?
Let's see. We have a butterfly hummingbird mixture, or we have a honeybee mix that will attract them. We also have the beneficial bug mix. I believe they're all annuals in those, right?
Yep,
Yeah,
there's a lot of annuals.
Yeah, a good amount of annuals in all those mixes. And then also it'll give you color for the whole summer.
Yeah, great. Tabar, anything to add there?
Yeah, I would say, those are good mixes. Things like zinnias, if you get annuals, are a really good pollinator species. It's good to keep the healthy insects around the area.
Yeah, great. Yeah, and was it Michael again who sent that question in?
Mm-hmm.
Great. So, Mike, thanks for the question. And as both Erin and Tabar mentioned, and we had talked about this again with an earlier question, is if you are looking to get color this year, because again, maybe you're going to plant something different for next year, you're going to want annuals. So as Erin mentioned, we do have some nice wildflower mixes. We have a honeybee mixture, a hummingbird butterfly, and a beneficial bug mix that I think all three would be great options. I believe, Amanda, you mentioned he has about 100 by 100,
yep,
which is about 10,000 square feet. So if I were to recommend seed, I would probably say about 10 pounds of seed, which would be about a pound per 1,000 square feet, which would be a nice dense coverage. Again, as we mentioned, get that seed down as quick as you can. Hopefully you can get some water to it. If not, try to plan your planting around some moisture in the forecast, and you should be on your way, Michael. And I would say 5 to 6 weeks you'll have flowers in bloom and hopefully be feeding the bees, birds, butterflies, and more.
Okay. Susan asks, I've been hearing so much about genetically modified seed. What exactly does this mean, and is your seed genetically modified?
Erin, you want to answer that question?
Our seed is not genetically modified. Gosh, I don't know if I can give a... It's a good question. Genetic modification is basically taking the structure of the seed and altering it in a lab. You're basically chemically or scientifically adjusting the plant genetic makeup, if you will. Whereas there's a variety of common kind of crossbreeding or hybridization where you allow the seeds to kind of interpollinate. With the genetic modification, that's a very kind of supervised chemical process. there's a variety of reasons that, folks are concerned about that, which we may not want to get into all of those. That's a pretty big debate conversation, but none of our seeds are genetically modified or altered in any way.
Yeah, and that's a great question, well answered by both Erin and Lindsay. For the 32 years American Meadows has been in existence, we have never handled nor sold genetically modified seed. I think that's important. You do hear it a lot. We take a lot of pride in working with growers and understanding and knowing where our seed comes from. We have also signed the Safe Seed Pledge as well, too, which you can research online. A number of companies within the seed industry are members and have signed that as well, too. So it is important. As both Lindsay and Erin mentioned, it's an important subject. It's difficult in the fact that I think almost on a daily basis you do hear GMO and how it's defined. It's almost changing constantly in the definition and stuff. But again, the bottom line is that American Meadows, all the seed that we sell is GMO free. As I mentioned earlier, all our seed is lab tested to ensure the highest quality and purity. We take a lot of pride in that, and I think we've built our reputation through the 32 years that we've been around of high-quality seed to our customers. So we take a lot of pride in that. That's a great question, and we continue to field that call on a daily basis. It's important to us, and thanks again. That's a very good question.
Okay. Sharon says, I just raked and dropped my seeds. I stepped on them, and the question is, would it help if on top of the planting I sprinkle peat moss?
Erin.
We recommend that you don't cover the seeds at all. Just stepping on them, getting that soil-seed contact is all you should really need.
Anything to add to that, Lindsay?
Yeah, I'd say, to Sharon's point, it's best not to cover the seeds. If you rake them in or put straw on top of them, that's going to prevent their germination. Mm-hmm. You really want to kind of think that the seed needs direct contact with the soil to grow, and it needs exposure to the sunlight. So if you've got that kind of sandwich there, you've got the right situation for seeds to grow well.
Great answer from both of you. And again, I would agree. I think a lot of people underestimate the size of some of the species in a wildflower mix that we sell. Things like poppy or baby's breath or digitalis. Some of the seed is extremely small. So even the lightest coverage with some peat moss or sometimes people ask about mulch or raking it in, just covering it slightly can hamper the germination process. So as Lindsay mentioned, you really just want to have it on the surface, a good seed to soil compression, sunlight from the sky and moisture for germination, and you'll be on your way. Another concern that always comes up when we tell them not to cover it is, well, the birds are going to come and eat the seed. Don't worry about that. There's 300,000 seeds in a pound of our wildflower mix. The birds can come and nibble on a few, and it's not really going to have an effect on the outcome of your garden. So when in doubt, never cover your seed. If you can just compress it, use your feet, roll it in to get the good seed to soil contact, that's enough, and you're on your way.
And to the point about the birds, most of the seeds they're going to eat really aren't the seeds that you're planting. Sunflowers, that can be the one tricky one, but for the most part, it's really not the seeds that they're going after.
Yeah.
Okay, Thomas says, I established a wildflower patch 7 years ago. I have grass that is starting to take over. How do I get rid of it?
That's a great question, Erin.
Go for that one?
Sure, I'd be more than happy to answer this question. And I wish I had a great answer. But unfortunately, I think a lot of times, especially I believe you mentioned he's in his 7th season, which is great. But a lot of times, sometimes you do come to this crossroads where if you do have an overabundance of grass in there, there's no real easy way to get rid of it. A lot of people will choose to, assuming that the area is big enough where pulling is not an option. So I think you ultimately make the decision, are there areas that you can salvage where you might spot plant or spot till around those and add some seed that way, or sometimes people will choose to just start over again. sometimes it's the easiest solution. Because again, unless you are you're able to pull the grass out of there, it makes it difficult to go in there and spot plant and put seeds in that way. So I guess it really depends on how big the area is and how aggressive the grass is. If there are some areas that you have good flowers in, maybe you can sacrifice those and kind of plant around them. But I wish I had a better answer, but a lot of times it just comes down to sometimes you're better off starting over fresh with a new planting the following year, especially if the grass sometimes gets the upper hand there. So, anything to add, Lindsay? Yeah, it's a question that we get often, and unfortunately, there isn't a miracle answer. I mean, unless you're talking 10 square feet, you can go out and pull the grass by hand and put in seeds, great. But most of the time, that's not realistic. So, I think a lot of times people it's just the decision of, how much grass is actually in there, and can they salvage some by doing a spot plant or a spot till, or they decide, hey, let's just start over fresh with a new planting in that fall or the following spring. So, great question.
All right, I'm not sure. No more questions are coming in at this moment.
All right, we'll give it another minute or so. So if you have a question, get them into us. We'll be here for another 60 seconds or so. Again, we want to thank everybody who participated in our second ever American Meadows webinar. Certainly stay tuned, as we are going to continue to have webinars throughout the summer months on different topics of gardening. If you have suggestions and ideas on how we can improve, don't be afraid to email those ideas and suggestions. And if you think of a question afterwards, don't hesitate to email us as well too. You can always check out our Facebook page as well too if you're interested in submitting any photos as well. We want to thank again everybody who joined us this evening. These are a lot of fun. We love entertaining. We love talking gardening.